They say that the things we do every day defines us, and to be honest, I kind of think that's a load of crap. I think you get the choice to choose who you want to be in your relationship with your daily tasks on a regular basis, and that will define who you are. There's no label or licensing program for self-actualization. But at the same time, there are some things that people like to do consistently. There are some things and some tools and actions that every single day they'll do no matter what. And to be honest, there are some things that I do, and I quite enjoy doing it all the time. How do you guys feel about me doing these A-roll bits in anamorphic? I have the Blazar Remus set. I haven't made a big use of them because it's just super freezing outside, but let me know in the comments down below. Now, as far as disclosures go, Polar Pro did send me one of these filters for my GFX 50R. They have no idea that I'm making this video. They're definitely not going to check it because they don't know I'm making the video, so I'm not going to tell them. But at the same time, I decided to go back and ask him for more filters. In fact, I messaged Shortstache to send me a single filter for every single lens that I have in my kit. So for the most part, I kind of asked for this. Now, some people might ask, what makes the Shortstache Everyday Filter so good? Now, it does have a couple of different uses, but it mixes together two major components. One is going to be, obviously, it's a mist filter. You're going to have a bit of diffusion. You're not a stranger to those things. There's been a bunch of diffusion filters out. It helps lift up some of the shadows. It helps give you a more, I guess, filmic or cinematic look and remove some of the digital sharpness from your camera. But the diffusion aspect isn't the most interesting part about it. It's actually the circular polarizer. When using a camera like the 50R, it actually works out pretty well, especially when I get images that look great right out of camera. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over a couple of different very specific use cases and how you would use it. And the first one is going to be automotive photography and automotive video because you are working with reflective surfaces. So when working with reflective surfaces, kind of like with a car, there's going to be a windshield. The body of the car is obviously going to be reflective as well. You're going to see some unwanted glares and flares. Now, what you can do while using the everyday filter is that circular polarization in order to get rid of some of those. All you have to do is rotate that filter and it will remove some of those glares and flares depending on where it is in the image. Now, this isn't necessarily a downside because I think all circular polarizers do this, but as you turn the filter around, it actually moves where that polarization effect is going to take place, which also means that it might remove it from somewhere else at the same time. For example, if I remove the glare out of the glass that's on a car, it actually might take away that polarization effect somewhere else in the image. So if there's different places where you need to have that effect at the same time, you have to keep in mind they should be relatively in the same place. It kind of feels like robbing Peter to pay Paul in order to make sure you get unwanted flares and glares, but at the same time, for the most part, most people are exposing for one part of their image that they want the reflections gone. Now, this doesn't just work in photography, this also works in video as well. In a previous video, I talked about exposing for darker skin tones and some of the techniques that you can use when working with people that are, well, magnificently melanated. Now, one of the things is actually using that circular polarizer. Again, we're talking about the most interesting part about this filter. And one thing that you might notice is that you actually control some of the harsh highlights that you get when working with people with darker skin, especially on areas of the face. So let's get a real life example of using the everyday filter in a video context. I think a lot of people are used to using this for photography, but this is what I mean. Now, right now, the image you're looking at right now, I'm shooting on the Blackmagic Pixis. I'm using my Blazar anamorphic lens, and I don't have a filter on there as well. I also have a key light over off to camera left, and that's usually where you're gonna have a key light because it's closer to the window, yada, yada, yada. You guys understand that stuff. Now, if you look closely enough, you're going to notice that there is going to be a little bit of a highlight. You'll be able to tell the source on the left side of the screen exactly where the key light is coming from. This is going to be pretty standard for interview frames or whenever you're using a key light to light up your subject. Now, I'm actually going to put the everyday filter on there now, and you're going to notice there is a subtle lift from that, a little bit of mist, which we'll talk about a bit later. It does give a little bit of a lift. It does take out some of the digital edge, but overall, it doesn't really change drastically that much. Now, if you want to see the disappearance of that key light, that harshness that's going to be on camera left, as I turn that filter, you're going to notice that as I turn the filter, you're going to notice that that's going to go away. Some of that color is going to come back in the highlight. It's going to help even out some of those harsh highlights that you might get from your light, especially when you want to get proper exposure. This is something you want to keep in mind. As you work with darker and darker skin tones, those key lights are going to show up in your frame, and using a circular polarizer is a great way to bring them back. Hey, it's Uncle Kofi. We are going to talk about the Ghanaian language of the day. I want to bless you. So today, the word of the day is going to be eye, which is a response to etesen. So if you see someone that is from Ghana, they might come to you and say, hey, Charlie, etesen, which means, hello, my friend, how are you doing? And your response may be eye, which means okay. But if you want to give a little emphasis, you have to say, mahonye, which means I'm fine. Or you may have also, if you want to make sure that your friend knows that you are doing well, you have to say, eye pa. You have to extend that A. Extend it, so you have to say pa to make sure they know you're having a good time. You are very fine though.
just like I am very fine making this video today. And you have to make sure you subscribe because I want to be a Yeboah the whole 2025. I want to make sure you're having a good day. I want you to subscribe, leave a comment, but continue with the video. I have to work on that accent. We'll get better. I'll explain this in a little bit better of an example. So just watch this for a second. I'm going to take the filter off and I'm going to get you to look at this side of my face. Even when I bring the camera down a couple of stops, this is what it's going to look like with the key light on my face. I'm using the Namelight Forza 300, and what you're going to see is around my cheek and around this side of my face where the light's going to start on, it's a little bit harsher in the highlights, and it's a little bit harder to control. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the filter back on, I'm going to rotate it to get rid of some of those highlights, and you're going to notice a difference in my skin tones in order to recover and protect some of those highlights when it's on a person's skin. Now, all of that does come with a halation. The everyday filter does have a quarter of mist. Now, my experience with other filters that do have a quarter strength of mist, sometimes it comes on a little bit strong. But on the everyday filter, it's actually a lot more subtle than I thought it would be. I've been using this everyday filter on my 50R for, I don't know, since I got it, and I've only actually taken it off for the purpose of this video. And what I've noticed is that mist filter, when using in portraits and using in environmental photos and even getting landscapes as well, I haven't noticed a gigantic amount of halation in there or diffusion that looks almost distracting to the actual image. This is super nice, and I think this is why they have the everyday and the everyday filters, because when you don't have a super overbearing amount of diffusion, being able to actually get that subtle lift and create that look, especially on a camera, which I do like using the film emulations to get great JPEGs, it actually makes sense for using that on the front of my lens a lot more often than if I was using something with a stronger strength. Now, when working with different skin tones and working with diffusion filters, it helps give a subtle lift. Some people want to have a more flattering look, and sometimes digital sensors are a little bit over sharp. We know this about diffusion filters already, but using this in combination with a circular polarizer for skin tones helps create a more pleasing look. Now, you can do some of this in post. If you want to adjust this, you can do this in your editing program if you're on DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro, but if you have a look already in mind, trying to get it in camera is probably your best bet. So using something like this might be something that's helpful. And last but not least, and I probably think this is the primary reason why people use filters like these, is for landscape photography. Now, in January, oddly enough, I've done a lot of traveling, more so than I thought I was going to do in the first 30 days of 2025. And I've done a lot of landscape photography, oddly enough, in the desert for someone that's from Canada. But every single image that I've got, either when doing street photography in Toronto, in my city, or even going to the deserts in Vegas, I did find that using that circular polarizer helps protect my highlights in the sky. Oftentimes when you're shooting in the middle of the day, your sky's gonna look a little bit blown out. And using the GFX 50R, it doesn't have the most dynamic range in the world in comparison to some other cameras that are available. Being able to try to mitigate that in camera while using a circular polarizer actually helps out quite a bit. When you use circular polarizers, you help protect your highlights overall. And you could do that by protecting your sky while still keeping the detail in your foreground. That being said, a special shout out to Garrett, a special shout out to Polar Pro and the Everyday Filter. I think this is a super useful tool to keep on your lenses, especially when you want to get a decent look right out of camera, but also some of the features of a circular polarizer come in handy outside of just protecting your skies in order to not blow out your highlights. If you guys want to check out the Everyday Filter, I'll leave a link in the description down below. And the YouTube algorithm probably thinks you want to see another video because we have a lot going on this month, but see you guys in the next one. Peace.